Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pet Working. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and I am back with Miles Thorson of Odie Pet to discuss some recent news that is going to result in a pretty sizable shift in the pet insurance landscape and uh, hopefully a new horizon in pet insurance coverage. Last week, I saw an article that Nationwide, who many may or may not know, is the largest pet insurer in the United States. Um, they are going to be cutting coverage for 100,000 pets. Um, and I saw this and I said, this is a big issue because, well, they were very clear that the decision to cancel these policies was not related to the age or breed of pet. It is a focus on profitability, and there are older pets that are going to be affected by this decision that Nationwide has made to cancel their coverage. As we've discussed on this show before, unlike medical insurance, pet insurance is underwritten as property and casualty insurance. So it is the same type of insurance coverage that you would get for your car or your home or your boat or your motorcycle. Um, and because of that, providers are free to exclude pre-existing conditions in their coverage. The problem is that if you've been paying in to a policy like Nationwide for the entirety of your pet's life, and now you have a 10-year-old pet with a lengthy medical record and your coverage is canceled, you probably can't get pet insurance for your pet elsewhere. And that's where I wanted to bring Miles in because we had loosely discussed around our last episode the idea of carriers providing an option for pet parents to switch coverages and to maintain coverage um, similar to what they had with another carrier. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Miles, and he can talk a little bit about what Odie is doing in the space and how you might be able to provide an option for some of these pet parents that are having their coverage canceled by Nationwide.
Yeah, no, thanks, Peter. It's always great to chat. I love the passion you have for the space. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's obviously a lot of things at play here. So, I mean, you're exactly right that unfortunately, sort of in the eyes of the law, our pets are still deemed as property, which is why the coverage, although it looks and acts and feels very similar to human health insurance, it falls under the property casualty P&C bucket in terms of the regulatory side of our business, as opposed to the life and health side, where obviously our medical insurance and things like that would fall under. And so there's just some different regulatory impact and some other nuances there that obviously that we're seeing come to light here. So I can't speak for Nationwide, but just in terms of what's going on in a macro sense across the industry, there's a couple of push and pull effects here with underwriting and performance of some of the carriers and programs in our space. Number one, the inflation story is absolutely real. So I don't want to minimize that. Costs of vet care are going up. In some cases, in some states and cities, double-digit percentage points year over year. So if you then look at a 3 to 5 year horizon, you're looking at a pretty significant number there, and that's for a number of factors. I mean, everything in our daily lives is being impacted from an inflationary perspective. But you're really in the vet space. I think it's mostly driven by really just a shortage of service providers, and vet burnout is another real thing. It's hard to find these practitioners. The sort of schooling and time to become a licensed veterinarian is kind of similar to a human doctor, and the pay is in most cases significantly less. And obviously then managing vet techs and all of the front end office side of things is just becomes more and more burdensome when these vets are essentially seeing more pets than they ever have in the past. So just by that alone, in terms of supply and demand, you're going to see an increase in pricing, and then there's an increase in the actual products and goods that are being utilized or offered through the vet. So it's definitely a compounding factor. So as underwriters, we have to factor that in. If you're a home underwriter, you have to assume that the cost of rebuilding a house today is drastically greater than it was 5 years ago. That is a real factor. I think there's also this issue with some of the larger carriers in our space that are a bit more seasoned, they're a bit more established. Frankly, their books of business, from what I've seen, are just not attracting young enough pets at a large enough rate to offset some of the now losses that we're starting to experience with the older pet population. And that's sort of again a push and pull effect where they've raised rates quite significantly over the past couple years, which sort of prices out a chunk of the American population, or makes it less attractive as a value proposition to a younger pet. So you're sort of self-selecting into this older pet population, and that's also then what's driving the performance, sort of a negative feedback loop, if you will. So those are all things that are occurring, and we all need to be cognizant of. So I'll go back to my soapbox real quick. It's so important for us to really expand this marketplace in the U.S. Odie's thesis is really not to compete with head to head with a Nationwide and try to steal their client base. We're really just trying to attract new people into the product with lower barriers to entry in terms of pricing points. A lot of optionality when it comes to selecting coverage that maybe a puppy doesn't need or a kitten doesn't need, but an older dog would. So we want to give the consumer a lot more choice in that matter. Again, to broaden the overall pie. And then again, I think some of our distribution strategy is centered around educating people on this topic, putting the product in front of them through other more novel channels versus historically relying on the vet network to present pet insurance as an idea when the pet's already having some health issues, or you're in the office, and things like that. So we're trying to do our bit in terms of broadening the market here in the U.S., which I think is it's better for the consumer. More and more entrants coming into the space, drives competition, it drives innovation. I'm a big supporter of that. And so in terms of the Nationwide cancellations, I mean, you're exactly right. You've paid year over year into this plan, and you feel like you have the rug sort of pulled out from underneath you. And really, currently in the marketplace, there's not a lot of options. You can get your auto insurance non-renewed by Geico, and you can call Allstate, right? In the pet world to date, the penalty for changing carriers, even if you just say, "Hey, I found a better price or a different coverage form that I'm more comfortable with," you're sort of penalized for switching. If you've had claims under your current policy, in by large in part, anything related to that condition going forward will be deemed as pre-existing by most carriers. Even simple things, a leg fracture, we've seen be deemed as completely excluding of coverage for any condition related to that leg, or even that entire side, that sort of bilateral condition of the pet going forward, which is, I think, a bit that's a bit broad and probably not the right way to approach it. But so we're in terms of how we interpret our coverage form, we're trying to make steps to not be so penal in terms of, if a condition's clearly been treated and healed, we will not consider that pre-existing going forward. That said, something that we're trying to do in terms of getting the word out is centered around allowing a cohort like this Nationwide policyholders, or a group of policyholders that are being non-renewed, allowing them to find replacement coverage Number one, that's at a great price and comprehensive coverage form. Um, and without to your point that penal pre-existing condition approach. So it's actually something that again, it sounds simple, but it's something that kind of I was thinking about through the lens of other specialty commercial programs that we've run in the past, namely, in the professional liability medical malpractice space. There's a lot of talk around retroactive date, and that's very important as a physician moves from one carrier to the other. That because the claim for a medical service provided years ago can come up. The results of that can be known, 5, 7, 10 years in the future. So there's a delay in when that claim occurs. So sort of taking a similar approach as to how those carriers treat that retroactive date is something that we're actually applying here at Odie, where we will actually extend one's coverage back to essentially the date of their prior policy, assuming there's been no lapses or cancellations in between then. In order to your point, provide this seamless kind of continuation of coverage, if you will. It's something that we've tested a bit with groups in the benefit space that, they're with a Nationwide or they're with a Trupanion or any other provider, and they, for whatever reason, are moving to us because of our rates or our coverage form or other other aspects, just competition in general, and that's been a big question. Is, hey, we have a few thousand employees and a few hundred of them are purchasing pet insurance through this provider. They would love to switch to you. So how do we facilitate that? And so it's something that we tested in the group benefit space. We've seen the performance of the underwriting side of that, not be as penal as you would think. And so it's something that we're definitely wanting to, continue to expand upon. And I think, again, getting the word out around this nationwide group of cancellations is a great opportunity to let people know, what we're up to.
Yeah. No, I know we talked about it when we had you on the show a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago, and you were sort of in the process of it. And when I saw this article, I was like, this is a great opportunity if they, have managed to solidify, that plan and that program um, to help a lot of people who
yeah,
otherwise would be left without an option to cover their pets because, if like you said, if you switch carriers as it is now, um, anything you have, any medical history that is documented for your pet is going to be
yeah,
deemed pre-existing. And I think it's a big step forward for the industry, and I think it really speaks to your thesis of getting more people into pet insurance
yeah,
from an early age.
yeah. I
And
mean, at the end of the day, there is a lot of regulation around our space. I think more of it is coming, which there's pros and cons to that. And I certainly don't know everything that the future holds, but uh, the way I would couch it is regulations are there to protect, at the end of the day, to protect the consumer. And if you're signing up for a policy with little to no fluidity in terms of who you work with year over year, that to me is not the spirit of any regulation, and is to the detriment of the pet owner and the insured. And so that's our take on it.
yeah, and I think, like you said, the other half of this is the inflation component, and we've definitely seen runaway inflation that's far outpacing the national rate of inflation with respect to the cost of veterinary care. I mean, I know personally, even for me here in Vermont, 7 years ago when we got P&E, the cost of a vet visit was $65, and today it is $100. I mean, that's pretty significant. And you so like you said, I don't necessarily fault Nationwide for making the economic decision that okay, we need to, you know, withdraw coverage in some of these areas, because it's not profitable for us. I mean, we can't ask insurance companies to continually take losses. That's not the spirit of insurance.
Right.
It doesn't work if the insurance company as a whole is losing money. And I don't know the specifics of the nationwide situation beyond what I've read in this article, but they said they're not making these cancellation decisions based on age or breed
Right.
or prior claims. But I think it does more so point to an overall systemic problem within the pet insurance industry, in that your pet is not a car or your pet is not a house. And if I yes, I can't go and buy a car that, you know, needs its front end replaced and then go get insurance and have the insurance company pay for that. But if I have a car that's in good working condition and I get into an accident and I
Yeah.
submit a claim and I get the repair, it doesn't mean that if my rates might go up
Right.
because I've had a claim, but it doesn't mean that I can't ever, have a claim for, you know, a collision or
Yeah.
windshield damage or anything like that again. And that's the situation that we're putting pet owners in
Yeah.
here, is that
Yeah.
um, if you have any claims, if you take your pet to the vet and then you want to switch carriers, everything that you've had your pet treated for is not going to be covered by your new carrier, absent this
Right.
new program that you're talking about with the retroactive date and
Yeah.
being able to say, look, anything that was covered under your previous policy, we will maintain coverage for. And I think that is a huge step forward in the industry. And, on the flip side of it, you talked about veterinary burnout being a principle, and the lack of providers, contributing to this, runaway inflation within the vet space. A big part of what contributes to burnout, and we've done episodes on veterinary burnout here at Pet Working before, a big part, not solely, but the idea of not being able to treat
Yeah.
because pet parents can't afford care, economic euthanasia.
Mhm.
That's a principal driver
Big.
for vet burnout. So there is this virtuous cycle here, that if we get more pet parents um, onto pet insurance plans, um, you know, theoretically, it will decrease the levels of veterinary burnout and get more pets into the vet more regularly, which should generate more revenue, which then could theoretically allow them to lower rates,
Right.
because you're seeing more patients. You have more doctors that are able to treat, that are able to fulfill what they went to vet school for. So I know, I think it is really an issue of education, because I think so many people don't opt into pet insurance because they have heard misinformation about, oh, pet insurance doesn't work, it doesn't cover this, um, it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions. But to your point, if you target different channels, if you target shelters or breeders or um, you know places where you can get coverage for pets prior to having any
Yeah.
pre-existing conditions, and can articulate the value of making sure that your pet is covered throughout its life. I think that it's going to represent a real paradigm shift in how we view not only pet insurance, but in how veterinary medicine is practiced in this country.
Yeah. No, I mean, back to your point on the veterinary space. Yeah, it's sort of in that example, one hand washes the other, right? I think the more that vets feel that they're fulfilling the whole reason they got into the space, uh, and chose that profession, which is an honorable one. I think then the more providers will maintain, have a healthier outlook, and that'll certainly assist in bringing some of the pricing of care down. And there's other factors. I think with some of the new technologies and new platforms that are out there, there's ways vets can see their clients through telemedicine portals and things like that, where they can add some additional revenue to their practice without that have to be in the office 24/7 and there's other things that I think will are certainly steps in the right direction. And then in terms of the underwriting side, the way I look at pet insurance right now, and granted, Odie has some of these, I'll say, limitations as well. Given that we are entering a regulated environment, and it's hard to break the wheel overnight, so to speak. But we as underwriters historically in the pet insurance space, there's really been a limited toolbox, and the tools available within that box are blunt at best. So you're lumping all pet owners into a singular category. Most companies actually don't change your rates based on claim history. It's really this sort of fairly linear trajectory of age and breed factors and things like that, and obviously zip code factors. And so there's limitations as to how you go about pricing these different plans, and I think the value proposition that should be existing for a healthy cohort of pets really isn't as strong as it is for someone that that's really going through sort of a pet that's aging or has a chronic condition that's being covered. And so I think there needs to be a better delineation and better data-driven pricing methodologies that, again, for a young, healthy pet, it should be kind of a no-brainer, purchase of coverage. And certainly somebody that has an older pet or a pet with conditions is going to understand that, I am going to pay more. And I don't think that consumers are unwilling to pay the right rate. I just think they want to feel like they are paying the rate that's appropriate for them and their pet, given the specifics. And so rewarding people for specific behaviors that we want to see, I think is going to be an important factor over the next couple of years. I think we spoke last time, the importance of certain foods and other behaviors that you can provide to your pet are monumental. I mean, I personally can't overstate the value I see in having your pet on the right diet, getting the right amount of activity, supplements as the pet ages to prevent and stave off, joint problems and all those kinds of things. I mean, they truly do keep your pet, out of the vet office, which is at the end of the day, if you want to have an enjoyable experience with your pet, you don't want to be sitting in the vet office. So yeah, I think there's a lot of evolution coming down. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's great ways to document those things, right?
correct.
You can show a receipt for, a certain purchase of food. You
Yeah,
can, there might be opportunities for pet nutrition manufacturers to partner with insurance companies and use pet insurance companies as a distribution arm. So you could do a D2C purchase through your pet insurance
yeah,
portal. Where we just launched an episode with Maven Pet, where they have, the wearable collar that then ties to the PIM system. So it's feeding
yeah,
biometric data and providing alerts of, when you need to take your pet to the vet. I have Peony on the Invoxia collar, which is giving me her heart rate and respiratory rate. There's lots of,
yeah.
wearable tech that's coming into the market, and
A tremendous
lots
amount.
of, we talked about this last time. There's lots
Yeah,
of data that insurers are going to be able to use. And even just documenting purchases of preventatives. And again, maybe that's another place where,
yeah,
you're purchasing your preventatives through your pet
yeah,
insurance company. So you can see like, hey, this pet is getting its, heartworm treatment every month. It's getting its flea and tick every month. It's getting its parasite prevention. Um, and like you said, reward those pet owners that are taking really good care of their pets. Um,
I mean, I think the opportunity around embedded insurance through the lens of pet insurance is tremendous, um, because for the reasons of that you just exactly mentioned, there's so much opportunity to integrate into these data sources and verify purchase activity, behavioral activities, obviously with the knowledge and consent of the pet owner. But that's where I think if you can embed the insurance into a card provider, actually something that we're excited about launching hopefully in the next couple of months is through a partnership that we have with a new company called Nibbles, which is a pet spend rewards card, and there's insurance, Odie insurance attached to that membership, that card usage.
Neat.
And beyond just the convenience and kind of the sales and marketing side of, hey, this is great. My benefits card also comes with some elements of coverage. The information that we can dive into as underwriters is really really exciting, and something that we'll certainly be trying to pilot with folks like that. I mean, then take that to the scale of an Amazon Prime or another platform like that, which is seeing a lot of that purchase activity, and I can verify that somebody's been on X food for the last 12 months or whatever the case may be. And then it's pretty easy from there to automate your rating engine to factor in those numbers and provide a much more specific rate to that pet and to that pet owner, rewarding good behaviors, rewarding healthy pets. And then also Odie wants to provide tools to our insureds as well. So something we're looking at is a more integrated pharmacy capability in our member portal, so that you can redeem your prescriptions or over-the-counter needs directly through that. We can better control our costs of those reimbursements, make it more convenient for the insured so that they don't have to wait to get reimbursed. We're just settling up directly with the pharmacy provider. So it's just a better user experience. It's more integrated, helps us control and predict claims costs, which ultimately allows us to maintain more affordable rates. And again, those are, I don't remember if we spoke about this last time, but those are all components of, I think, what needs to happen in our space. Singularly, they're interesting and they certainly drive an impact. But when you start to layer these different evolutions and better pricing methodologies and risk assessment methodologies on top of one another, then it really starts to be meaningful.
Yeah. And the other side of it is that, in addition to having that data to provide more specific rates based on the correlations and actuarial findings that you already know, by continuing to have that data, you're probably going to be able to identify uh, new models and new actuarial conditions that could allow you to offer other people more favorable rates. So,
Yeah.
as you see this over time, you might, see like, oh, well, this breed of pet, on this food does, we haven't seen any claims from this cohort, and
Yeah, I mean,
be able to,
you can start to ask
offer.
questions. You can start to do your own assessments. All right, we have this cohort of pet parents that are performing better, or if it's a breed specific or geography specific, or any number of factors, you can start to then assess. All right, well, what's going on here that is outsizing their performance, and then you can start to try and replicate that. And I think historically is true for insurance, but pet insurance as well. Um, we tend to look at pricing and rate risk assessment from a rear view mirror. Okay, we had a loss. What happened, right? And then we start to assess that. I think a lot of these new analytics tools and predictability capabilities are going to be allowing us to actually look at the road ahead and be much more proactive in risk assessment. Risk and then risk mitigation are two different things. So identifying where there may be risk ahead, then giving an insured the tools to mitigate or completely avoid those risks. That's where you're going to see a real impact to the industry here.
Yeah, and I think it will have a huge impact on the nutrition side of it too, because one of the things I think a lot of people fail to realize, and we've called it out on a couple of the episodes that we've done with Nulo and wellness, and Dr. Greg Aldrich was the first one who made the point. But when you look at human nutrition, there's taxpayer funded research that
Right,
goes into telling you and I what to eat, what's healthy, what's not healthy. We have the NIH. We have nothing of that sort in the pet nutrition space.
right,
That's all industry funded. And I think, some, manufacturers like wellness, undergo additional, studies and testing, and Nulo does it too. And, We've had Primal on talking about the papers they've recently published, but that's all funded on the backs of manufacturers. And, you know, there's certainly a financial incentive for them to be able to say, okay, we have proven nutrition. But I think there's probably an even greater financial incentive for pet insurance
Mhm.
carriers to be able to say, okay, based on the data that we've seen,
Yeah,
and, you know,
100%.
and
That's
then that
that, yeah.
contributes to more, advanced nutrition research. And again,
Right.
it's one hand washing the other. Um,
I couldn't agree more. Just sort of quick 2 cents on that. I mean, it's something that we're definitely talking to some brands that at first blush we feel would be better health outcomes, provide better health outcomes, and we're trying to determine, okay, is there a pricing discount or other benefits, coverage benefits that we can afford this cohort. It's going to take some time, but I'm not the one to sit here and tell you if your pet should be on a vegan diet or on a high quality kibble or completely raw that's not my background. But I can certainly run some analysis to determine, is a subset of pets that we know on a vegan diet, are they still, accruing conditions like diabetes and weight problems and other skin allergies and things like that at the same rate as someone else, or worse or better. So I think that's where we can be agnostic in the sense of we don't really have an opinion on what you should do, but we can tell you what results we see because we have that claims data. And to your point, we can start to then be a voice in the room at least and say, actually, as a company or as an industry, you're claiming X. We're not seeing that to be true, right? And so we can then encourage education. I don't think anybody's out there to mislead anybody, but we can encourage that dialogue and that education and further analysis.
yeah. I mean, I've said it since the start of the year. I really think, in the next few years, we're going to start to see so much more of an ecosystem develop. And I think pet insurance really is the linchpin connecting, pet nutrition and animal health. And, it has the potential to touch all aspects of the industry.
Yeah,
And there is this virtuous cycle, from things like more pet insurance means less veterinary burnout. And pet insurance data can help nutrition manufacturers validate claims and
yeah,
advance science. And I think the more and more we see companies start to work together in this space, the better health outcomes we're going to have for pets. So um, I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think, hopefully, affected policyholders who are seeing their coverage canceled, um, go to Odie. I don't know if you have a portal or anything like that set up for people yet, but we'd love to make sure that those 100,000 pet
yeah. Not,
owners
I
are.
mean, not yet specifically. Again, sort of a very fluid process, but if anybody does sign up and has that prior coverage with Nationwide, uh, it's very easy to let our customer service team know, whether that's through the portal or live conversation, and we can then document the file and definitely make note of that. We do have a good use case around identifying those folks in the future and handling the claim as such. So we're definitely here to help. We want to give people, a home for coverage, and again, it's right now it's probably a small drop in the bucket with everything going on, but I think it's a good start.
Yeah, no, I think it's great what you guys are doing. And, I think, like you said, the more people we can get into the space, the more we can, increase that, market beyond 4% to, hopefully approximating, close to what we see in the UK at 25%, or I think Sweden's at 40%. Really is going to lead to a very different care paradigm
Yeah,
in the animal health space.
yeah,
So, yeah, excited to see what happens. And thanks for taking the time to come back on and chat today. I think this was
yeah.
great.
Likewise. Thanks for reaching out. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Peter Kenseth with Pet Working, everyone, and Miles Thorson with Odie Pet Insurance. Thanks for taking the time. We'll all talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Listening is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades.